You guys are here today. Welcome to Pathway.
All right, well, good morning, Pathway. Man, wasn't that just an incredible, powerful time of worship? Man, I love that. That was amazing. Man, we just want to get back up here and keep worshiping. That was so good. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here. If you're new, welcome. My name is Brian. I'm the pastor. And at Pathway, we simply want to help you to know God, to find family, and to make a difference. That's what we're all about as a church in a nutshell. So, man, again, thank you so much for being here. Obviously, it's the Christmas season, Christmas time, and we started kind of a series last week where we're just looking at the why of Christmas, and that's what we talked about last week was why do we celebrate this holiday? Why Christmas? And we unpacked that. In fact, we kind of went cover to cover in the whole Bible. We went from Genesis all the way to the end, and what's the main focus, what's the main theme, and we discussed that at length, so we won't rehash that. So last week was the why of Christmas. Why do we celebrate this day on December 25th? But today we want to look at the who of Christmas. So we know why we celebrate it, the birth of Jesus, okay? Well, who is Jesus? That's the question. So again, as I said last week, I really believe in starting with why and asking why. And so why do we celebrate Jesus' birth? Who is Jesus? And I want to dive into that. What we're going to look at today is a part of a letter in the New Testament of the Bible. So the Bible has New and Old Testament. In the New Testament, there's a letter called Colossians, and it was written by a guy named Paul, who was a follower of Jesus, and he wrote it to Christians that lived in the first century city or town of Colossae, which is modern-day Turkey, and on the Mediterranean kind of inland there. And when Paul writes this, it's in the 50s AD, so it's not that long after the resurrection of Jesus. And he writes it actually while he is in prison in Rome, awaiting trial, and he's on trial for telling people about Jesus, and he's awaiting trial. As he's there, he actually didn't start this church. This is one of the few letters that we have from this guy Paul in the New Testament of a church that he didn't start, someone else did, but he hears about how great they're doing, how well they're growing in God, and he writes this to encourage them, and it's a beautiful letter, but he's addressing some, we would say, heresy that's going on, and there was some debate in that time about who is Jesus. That's kind of what they were debating in that church. Is Jesus just like a hierarchy of angels, and he's kind of like the top angel? Is that who he is? I mean, there's all these supernatural forces out there, and so maybe Jesus is just one of many, but he's kind of like in the top. He's like a 4-star general. Is that who he is? And Paul writes to say, absolutely not. That is not who Jesus is. Let me set the record straight, and he does in chapter 1. And then the rest of the letter is really him unpacking, now we know who Jesus is. Now this is what it means to live for Jesus. So he unpacks that this is what it means practically for your life. And what we're going to look at today is in 1 Colossians chapter 1. We're going to look at verses 15, really we're going to focus on 15 to 17, but it's a poem or a hymn that was verses 15 to 20. And I'll just say this, there is no greater place in the entire Bible that is so dense and jam-packed full of who Jesus is than what we're going to look at today. That's not my opinion. That's not hyperbole. Every scholar, New Testament scholar, agrees, because I've spent hours of research this week, they all said the same thing, that Paul gives 7 attributes here of who Jesus is, and it is so packed full. It's like a nuclear bomb. I mean, it's just so crammed full of who Jesus is. And usually at the end of a message, I try to give you homework. And today I want to give you homework at the beginning. And I think you'll see why. But my homework for you this week is, especially during this Christmas season, I want you to go this week and just read one sentence, not even a whole verse, just one sentence of what we're going to look at today. Read one sentence per day this week and spend that whole day just thinking about that verse and just really letting it soak in your mind and your heart. Because I'm telling you, this is powerful stuff. One of the things that we celebrate during this time of year, the birth of Jesus, the formal theological name for that is the doctrine of the incarnation. So you can impress people with that. If they are impressed with that, good for them. I'm not. But anyway, the doctrine of the incarnation is the birth of Jesus, God becoming flesh. That's what that is. And then another, if you want to impress people as well, when you study Jesus specifically, that's called Christology. So ology is the study of something, right? So Christology is the study of Christ, and we're going to go deep into that today, and it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. So Colossians chapter 1, verse 15, Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. For through him, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He made the things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen world. Everything was created through him and for him. He existed before anything else, and he holds all creation together. Christ is also the head of the church, which is his body. He is the beginning, supreme over all who rise from the dead. So he is first in everything. For God in all his fullness was pleased to live in Christ, and through him God reconciled everything to himself. He made peace with everything in heaven and on earth by means of Christ's blood on the cross. It's powerful, powerful stuff. I mean, really, really loaded. In fact, I was going to try to cram all of it into one message, and if I had an hour to do it, I would, but I want to respect your time, so we're only going to do verses 15 to 17 today. We might pick up the rest next week. I don't know. We're still praying about that, but here's the thought. Who is Jesus? And if you've ever really had that question, who's a little baby born in Bethlehem? No. That is not it at all. We're going to look at the big picture Jesus, not the miracle-working Jesus, the walking on water Jesus, the turning water into wine at a wedding Jesus, and the great teachings of Jesus. No, big picture. Who is he? And this answers it very clearly. Look at verse 15. Again, we'll take it line by line. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. Now, he gives two titles for Jesus right here in verse 15. One, who is Jesus? He is the visible image of the invisible God. We'll unpack that in a moment. And then secondly, we'll talk about this in a moment too. He is supreme over all creation. Now, the rest of this poem, all the way to verse 20, he is unpacking those two thoughts. Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God, and he is supreme over everything. And now he just unpacks it the rest of this poem. So, Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. Well, the Bible tells us clearly in the New Testament and Old Testament, God is a spirit. He's a spirit. He is invisible, literally. You cannot see God. God is invisible. He's a spirit. But Jesus, God in the Son, is his visible expression. So what we mean by that is, it's not when you look at Jesus, you're like, well, that's what God looks like. He looks like, a guy from Israel with a beard and a typical kind of Jewish-looking person. No. That's not, physically what we're looking at. What we're saying is the characteristics of God, the nature of God. So when you read about the four accounts of the life of Jesus called the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the New Testament, when you read those and you hear the words of Jesus and you see the miracles of Jesus, you're seeing God in a human form interacting with his creation. It's powerful. So the other thing, we talked about this last week. If you remember, the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, means beginnings. In chapter 1, God creates everything that you can possibly conceive. He creates all of it in 6 days. And on the sixth day, he creates humans. And God creates humans. It says in chapter 1, verse 26 of Genesis, that God made man in his image. Now, here we read that Jesus is the image. There's a difference. We are made kind of like, the old copy machines, right? When you have the original copy, you put it on there, and then the copies, the more you make, the more diluted it gets a little bit. That's something of what we're made in that image. But Jesus is the original. He is the image. Think about all the beauty of creation. Everything that you see that is beautiful, the mountains, the oceans, the whatever, the beautiful animals and the meadows and flowers and the cosmos. And you look at all that and you realize God did that. God created that. And it should lead you into awe and wonder. In fact, another letter that this same guy Paul writes called Romans, and in Romans chapter 1, he says that, because sometimes people ask me this, what about people on a desert island? If they never heard about Jesus, would they go to heaven? And the answer is, the Bible already answers that in Romans chapter 1. It says that God has revealed himself to all human beings through nature. So the idea is that even by looking at nature, I would realize there is some intelligent design, some creator out there. You marvel at the beauty of the mountains and of the ocean and how beautiful that is. And yet, in that same moment, you can pull out the device in your pocket called your phone. You can get on social media or a news app, or maybe you get alerts, and you realize there were 2 shootings yesterday. And it breaks your heart. And you have to understand, the same God that created all this beautiful thing that I was just admiring, how gorgeous it is, how beautiful it is, there's no way that he did this. And you're right. Because he didn't do that. We did. Humanity did. God creates the beautiful world, and who messes it up? Us. So we don't blame God for that. We look in the mirror for that. We talked about that extensively last week. But that is the point of this poem. The point of this whole poem is to say that through Jesus, God created the world, and that through this same Jesus, God is redeeming the world, bringing the world back to himself. Jesus is the central figure for everything, period. That's the point of this poem. Jesus, it says, is supreme over all creation, which means Jesus is not a vitamin supplement. Here's the thing. Sometimes, vitamin supplement, and I don't know, I don't really go to the doctor, but my wife does. And so there's always something wrong. It's like going to a mechanic. There's always something wrong. I'm like, really? Is there? Okay, that's my soapbox. But so they're like, you're iron deficiency. You need to take some supplements for iron. It's like, okay, well, I'll take some. And then the next day, so you got vitamin B deficiency. You got to take some supplements. Okay. So what is a supplement? I eat a normal amount of food, but for some reason my body, according to a doctor, is lacking in something, and I need to take something to supplement what I am lacking. And there are many, many people, especially where we live. There's not that many atheists where we live. There might be some. There's not some that are like, I don't believe it at all. In fact, I think we're on the opposite. Where we live in a very dangerous place, because specifically where we live, it's a lot of people who view Jesus and Christianity as the vitamin supplement. Meaning, I'm just doing my life, everything's good. Oh, I hit a snag, and oh man, my finances are a mess, and I'm going to take a little supplement of Jesus to help me out financially, and a little supplement. I'll go to church now for a couple months, and things are getting good, and I kind of back off. I kind of trail off. I don't need the supplement anymore because I'm healthy again. Or things are good. Oh my goodness, my marriage is about to implode. It's about to explode. We better go to church. And Jesus, would you help our marriage? And in his grace, he does. And then as we're doing good, we kind of back off a little bit. I need a little more joy, so I'll go to church. I need a little more peace, so I'll pray. And in his grace, he gives those things. But then we trail off because my need was met. And what you're doing and what people around us do is view Jesus as a supplement to their life. In other words, I have my life, I have my money, I have my family, I have my job, I have my career, I have my family, but I need a supplement every now and then to kind of, a little pick-me-up to help me out, and that's Jesus. That is not what this says. This does not give you the option to say, hey, if things are okay in your life and you need a little pick-me-up, try a little bit of Jesus. He can be a pick-me-up. No. This makes it abundantly clear you can't do that with Jesus. He is not a vitamin supplement. He is the supreme of all creation, of all things. You cannot be neutral with Jesus. You can't be like, well, I mean, I think a lot of people, if you were to go to Target or Walmart, especially where we live, and say, do you believe in Jesus? I think probably a good chunk of them would say yes. And they say, I believe in Jesus. Okay, do you believe that you would, if you died right now, you'd go to heaven? Well, me and the big man, we're not on the best of terms, but I do believe, and I did go to Grandma's church, and I do go on Christmas and Easter, and, that's not what we said. You can't be neutral about him. Either he is the supreme of your life, or he's not. And what astounds me about this is that all of creation, the blue whales in the ocean, the beautiful mountains, and the beautiful rings of Saturn, the beautiful flowers, all of that is under his control. He is supreme over that. And yet, for humans to say, no thanks, is the height of arrogance. You're saying you know better with your little brain, no offense, you know better than all of the cosmos, the one that created everything. How arrogant can you be? I say that with love and respect, but it's true. We can no longer, after you read this, you can no longer walk away with Jesus and be neutral. You can no longer walk away with Jesus and be like, well, he's a supplement, and when I'm down, he's... No, that's not what it gives. In other words, it astounds my mind to think that all of creation submits to him but the human heart. How rebellious is that heart? How stone cold is that heart? I honestly wrestled with this all week, and I still can't get over it. I just truly can't. I wish I could, wrap my head around it. I can't. And it's not because I'm a pastor. It's because I know this to be true of my life. That he is supreme over everything in my life. It is inconceivable to me that another human mind would say, I know better than you, or I don't need you, or worse, I don't even want you. And then we blame him when at the end for eternity, he says to us, when you die and see him, and he says, depart from me, for I never knew you. Oh, why would a loving God send people to hell? No, he's saying, you rejected me on the earth. You said to my face you didn't need me or want me, that you knew better than all of creation, and all creation was under my control except for your human heart. So now for eternity, I'm going to give you what you want. That's what this is getting at. So I could spend all day on that, but we won't. Moving on. He made the things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen world. Now that is a loaded statement. And just very briefly, again, what they were dealing with in that day and age was Jesus was like the most supreme angel. They were having the discussion we're having today, who is really Jesus? And they believed that the supernatural forces that they couldn't see were real. I have news for you. They are real. The Bible makes it abundantly clear there is a supernatural realm that we cannot see as human beings. That is not a material, physical realm, but it is 100% real. Angels are 100% real, and demons are 100% real. Now, the point of what this is saying here is he made the things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen world. In other words, if you're a follower of Jesus, you don't pray to angels. You don't worship angels. We don't despise them. I mean, they're cool. I've never seen one. It'd be kind of cool, right? I mean, but the point is, we don't elevate the status of angels. In fact, the same guy, Paul, writes another part in the New Testament, says, don't you know that as a follower of Christ, we would judge the angels. That's a whole other box there. So we don't worship angels. We don't pray to angels. They're ministering spirits that God sends to help us, which is great. So make that clear. We don't pray to saints either. That's not in the Bible. All right, we don't pray to dead people, dead humans, as great as they might be, dead ancestors and dead great Christian people. We don't pray to them. We pray to God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, period, end of story, no exceptions, okay? So we make that clear. And then as well, on the flip side, that means as a follower of Jesus, you should never be afraid of demons, ever. Don't lose sleep over that. Don't be afraid of it. The thought that kept coming to my mind when I read that, it's Christmas time, Home Alone with Kevin, and he comes down and he's trying to do the laundry, in that scene, and every time he would come down before, the furnace would look like, this big monster with the teeth and the glowing, and finally he comes down and it's like, hi, Kevin, I'm going to eat you, or whatever it says, I don't remember, and Kevin says, shut up, and it immediately stops, and he goes about his business. That's the attitude that you should have when it comes to this. Are demons real? 100%. Do they seek to attack you and to destroy you and to oppress you? 100%. But you shouldn't be afraid of them, because the one that created all things, you're connected with him. You have a relationship with him. You are under his submission, under his control. So don't you dare worry about any of that, because he has already conquered that. He is already victorious over all. So everything was created through him and for him. In other words, think about that. Everything was created in him, or through him, and for him. Jesus is the only uncreated eternal being. Jesus was not, in some translations of the Bible, it's why I like this translation. Some translations say he was the firstborn of all creation. That might lead you to think that he was the first thing God created. No. Jesus was not created by God. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that. In fact, they add that language to this text, which is wrong on so many levels. So no, we don't believe that at all. That's not what's going on here. So Jesus was not like the first thing God created. He was there all along. Jesus, God the Father, is the master architect. He is the one that everything you can conceive and that we haven't even discovered yet in our known world around us, it was his idea. It was as if God the Father had the idea and he wrote it down on blueprints and he passed the blueprint to the general contractor called God the Son, Jesus, and Jesus created it. He made it happen. That's what this is getting at. What it's saying is that everything was created through him and for him. In other words, Jesus was the beginning of all creation, and Jesus stands as the end goal of all creation. In other words, the goal of all creation, especially human beings, is one thing: to reflect his glory and his beauty. Your purpose on earth is not to make a lot of money. I hope you do. That'd be great. Your purpose on earth isn't to have a nice, healthy life. I hope you do. That'd be great. Your purpose on earth is one thing and one thing only: to glorify God the Son in all that you do, with your money, with your family, with your health, with your spare time, with your job. Every ounce of your cellular being comes to that one central truth, that everything that I have and do is to reflect the glory of God the Son. That is what this is saying. I'm a parent. The goal of being a parent is that my children would grow up to display and reflect the glory of God the Son. That's what this is saying. Because Jesus is before all creation, he is above all creation, only he can hold all creation. Look at verse 17. He existed before anything else, and he holds all creation together. Jesus existed before anything else. And he is supreme above all things, so only he can hold all things. Now, think about this. This, I still can't get over. My wife will say every day, my brain, and it's small to begin with, but it really can't just conceive of this thought. It blows my mind, and I've been praying all week that it blows your mind too. Sometimes, especially if you're a follower of Jesus, we almost take some of these things for granted. And I just want you to slow down and stop and just let this sink into your heart and your mind. What this is saying, literally, is the same one that holds the stars in the sky, the rings of Saturn that are made of dust, the one that knows that the planet Earth that we are on right now is going over 66,000 miles an hour. I mean, that's fast. It's going that fast. And what is incredible is that the same one that has that is the same one that knows at 29,028 feet the top of Mount Everest. And is the same one that knows the depth of 36,000 feet, the Mariana Trench on the Pacific Rim, the deepest part of our planet, where there are sea creatures that haven't even been discovered yet. Light can't even reach down to it. Humans can't even live above 26,000 feet. And all of the animals in the rainforest and the oceans and all the planets and all the cosmos and the beautiful flowers and the beautiful mountains. Literally, Jesus holds it all. What this is saying is, what holds everything together, it's not protons, it's a person. What holds it all together isn't an atomic molecular, composite of protons and neurons and electrons and all of that stuff and gravity. No. The one who holds that is Christ alone. And that blows your mind. But take it a step further. The same one that holds all of that is the same one who stepped down into his creation and said, I love you so much that I want a relationship with you. The one that holds the rings of Saturn and the size of Jupiter and the top of Mount Everest and the bottom of the ocean is the one who willingly came to earth as a person, and his own creation killed him on a cross. And he died the death of a common criminal. And yet that same one did it, not because he had to, he was forced to. He had one motivation: love. So that you and I can have a relationship with him, that our sins would be forgiven. But the same one that his own creation murdered him, slaughtered him on a Roman execution torture device, the cross, is the same one that God raised up 3 days later and is alive forevermore. And as the poem goes on to say, because he lives, we will live forever too. He was the first of all creation. He's the first, it's going to go say later, of the risen of the dead. In other words, because he lives, he is not afraid of death. I don't have to be afraid of death either. I have hope for eternity because of him. He holds it all together. This is why the incarnation, the birth of Jesus, matters. You see, look, we are not celebrating, at least I'm not, a little cute baby being born in a manger 2,000 years ago in Bethlehem, Israel. I'm not celebrating that. I'm celebrating this Jesus, the cosmic Jesus, the one that holds it all together and can hold me too. That's the one I celebrate, that came and broke in time to have a relationship with me. You understand, the birth of Jesus isn't just a Bible story. It's the reason we have a Bible. It's not just a cute little, there's 3 wise men, and we're going to read that story in a couple weeks. There's a cute little wise men and the shepherds, and they're the angels, and they all sing. And it is very cute. It's very sweet. It's very nice. But that's not just a Bible story. It's the whole reason we have all of this. That's the whole point, which is the verse of this great Christmas hymn, "O come, all ye faithful. O come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest, the Word become flesh." When you sing that song, it's not a cute little Christmas thing with your kids. It is a worship song for the majesty and the glory of the one that came and lived among us and died for us and holds it all together. If Jesus, if this is true, and it is, can hold all of it together, he can hold you too. And you may be stressed out right now for a host of reasons. I've shared many times, I won't go into it, but 2 years ago, this very week was the lowest point of my life. I mean, the lowest point of my life. So I could relate. You may be stressed out, and I would just humbly and lovingly say, could it be because you're trying to hold it all together? You're trying to hold on to your joy while you know you got family strife. And you're trying to hold on to your peace while you know you don't know what your job situation is going to be like come January 1. And you're trying to hold it all together while, man, you and your spouse been sleeping in separate rooms. And you're trying to hold it all together. Can I tell you, you can't. You're not meant to do that. Only Christ. And if he can hold all things together, he can hold you too. That's the hope of Christmas. That's the who of Jesus. That's why it matters. Maybe your life is falling apart. It's falling apart because, yeah, you're trying to hold it all, and you can't. Only he can. Even when you don't understand the pain that you're dealing with, the suffering that you're facing right now, the beautiful encouragement in that is that he is still in control of all things. I don't understand why I have to go through this right now. It's not my fault. It's not a result of sin. I didn't do anything wrong. I've just been faithful to God, and all of a sudden, my life really is falling apart. And so, no, Brian, I'm not trying to hold it all together. I'm giving it all to him, but I'm still suffering. It's still painful. It's still hard. And I I know you may not want to hear this, but the encouragement in this is that he is in control. He is still supreme over all things. Even when you don't understand what's going on, even when it may feel like God is silent or distant, he is still supreme. Maybe you're struggling because you're trying to find meaning or purpose in something or someone other than Christ. The whole point of all creation is to glorify him. And if you're saying, well, the point of my life is to make money or to do this or to do that, no wonder you're struggling. No wonder you're frustrated. No wonder you go from job to job or relationship to relationship or church to church, and you just can't find peace because you're searching in all the wrong places. The point of everything is him. The purpose of your life is him. So give your life to him. And I would just leave you with this. This truly, I can't, again, wrap my head around it. I hope you can. The one that we just talked about, just a few verses. All this great stuff. And there's more to come. We didn't finish it. You mean I can have access to him daily through prayer? The one, so he's like holding Jupiter on this hand, and I'm talking to him on this hand. That kind of thing? Yeah. Listen, Pathway family. After this, you should be running to pray. You should be begging to pray. You should be, I got to wake up at 4 o'clock to pray. Not because I have to and I want to be a good little Christian to get brownie points with God, but because I get to talk to the supreme creator of the cosmos, and he holds all things together, and everything is under his submission. And so I get to talk to him. I get to have a personal, private audience with the king of all things every day. Yes. Then why not pray? I mean, that's what prayer is. You should be longing to pray. And for those of us that would say, Brian, you're right, I want to give my life to him. Everything else is under his submission, but you're right, as you said earlier, but the human heart. And that's my heart. And I'm ready. I'm tired of fighting. I want to give my heart, this stone cold heart. I want to give it to him so that I can know him the way you're talking about, the way Colossians chapter